I'm Gabe Lullo, and welcome to the Do Hard Things podcast. We're talking to go-to-market leaders and entrepreneurs who have conquered the challenges, the hustle, and the grind. Get ready for real talk, real insights, and no fluff.
But the hardest thing in the world right now is not actually closing deals, it's actually getting somebody's attention.
If you don't have that hook in that first 5 to 10 seconds, guess what? They're going to scroll to the next one.
You need to go in and you need to make it sound like yourself. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle. And I promise you, we can all tell.
The people that are trolls and the people that are haters never done the thing that you're doing.
I love doing this podcast because I get a front row seat to some of the greatest minds in sales.
Gone are the days of saying stay in your lane. When you're an executive leader and you're an enterprise-wide leader, there are no lanes. You've got to be partners.
Curiosity is like when the type of questions you ask is sometimes the value that you bring.
I need you to tell me when you're ready to buy or what you're ready to do. And I think it's changed so much into like adding more value. And if you're not doing that, then you're definitely going to come off as desperate.
High pressure selling is like a dinosaur tactic at this point.
No parent is like, oh, you should be a salesperson when you grow up, right? Everyone's like a doctor, lawyer, whatever crap. It's never salespeople.
It's not your job to motivate people. It's your job to find motivated people.
It's not cockiness. It's not arrogance. It's confidence knowing I know this and I know that I can help you.
From where I started to where I am today is all because I learned how to sell.
And there's too many people who have only been doing this for 5 freaking minutes. Sit down, close your mouth, actually go out there and get yourself beat up. Then come back and tell me if something is dead or not.
That is exactly why I started this podcast, because right there, that's the epitome of doing hard things.
Welcome back to the Do Hard Things podcast with Lexi and Gabe. Today's guest, Karen Laos, is a global speaker, TEDx coach, 3-time author, and founder of The Confidence Cocktail, a framework built to help women speak up, ask for what they want, and stop playing small. Karen is on a mission to silence self-doubt in 10 million women in 10 years. She spent 25 plus years teaching high-achieving women how to communicate with confidence and clarity, working with companies like NASA, Google, Netflix, Sephora, and Uber. Her journey started with a moment of mortification. Years ago, she froze in a boardroom. Her boss shut down the meeting and said, "You don't trust your gut, you could have tabled the meeting." That moment sent Karen on a path to figure out why she froze and build a system so other women wouldn't have to. She's a 3-time best-selling author of Trust Your Own Voice, Invisible No More, and Unshakable. And her keynotes cover leadership presence, negotiation strategies, and the 7 ways women give away their power and how to take it back. Karen, welcome to the show.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Do Hard Things podcast with your hosts, Gabe and Lexi. Karen, we just heard your bio. We're so excited you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Looking forward to this.
Yes, we are a big fan of yours, and we can't wait to get into all these questions we have for you. But your bio is quite impressive. The audience just heard it, before we kick this off. So we're really pumped for this one. I do have a question though about origin story. I always like to start off like, how did you get here? Where did you come from? Walk us through that. Right? You heard obviously in the bio all this super exciting stuff, but take us through it. What really made you start, and what was the reason why you jumped in?
Yeah, I was 6 years old when my dad gave me, and I promise I won't go through my entire childhood story. But the origin piece is important. When I was 6, my dad would take me to flea markets, and I remember the first time he said, "Here's a few dollars." He said, "Go have fun, but never pay full price." And I had no idea that that was even a thing. I mean, obviously, I'm a little kid, and it was so exhilarating. I thought, this is so fun. And he taught the power of asking throughout my entire life. If you don't ask, you won't get. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, is what he always used to say. But I do want to say that in contrast to that, I come from a very traditional home from the perspective of my mom being a homemaker, and I'm the last of 9 kids, so she was pretty busy. And through her modeling, she taught me that as a woman, I don't have a voice. I need to look to an authority who is typically the man. I mean, as a kid, that's what I saw in the household. But she also was a powerhouse in the community. So it was a confusing message of, okay, you can speak up and ask for things when you're outside, when you're providing value, such as in the workplace, but you can't do it at home. And so what that led me to then was many years later, and throughout my career being quite successful externally, I had a boardroom moment. I call it my boardroom moment. And that's when I could not get the words out in front of 7 people that were in high leadership roles. And my boss actually shut down the meeting. And it was mortifying. It was truly mortifying in that moment. And she pulled me aside after and she goes, Karen, you didn't trust your gut. You could have just tabled the meeting. And it was in that moment that I thought of 2 things. The first thing I thought is, what? I could have tabled the meeting? And then secondly, why do I keep asking for permission? And the truth is I had a conflict with what she had suggested I present, but I never said anything because I was taught you don't question your boss. So that was the moment that I realized I have to figure out what is the root of my problem. And I realized that there were in certain situations with certain personality types, I didn't feel worthy to share my opinion. And the priority was making sure that other people were more comfortable, which is what I was taught as a good Midwestern girl. You make sure everybody else around you is comfortable, even if it's at your expense. So that was really that moment that took me then a few years to get to the root of my challenge with that and realize, oh my gosh, we all have agency to speak up and it's incredibly liberating. So I was really what I call a prison in my own making. And I realized that I want to help all women be free. So I left my corporate job in 2020 to focus on my mission to silence self doubt in 10 million women. And that's going to culminate on the Chase Center stage in San Francisco in 2030. And we're about 4.5 million reached so far.
Wow. That's awesome. What an incredible story. And you now, like you said, work with thousands of women, major companies. How common do you think that tongue tied experience really is? And what's actually happening in someone's brain when they freeze like that?
Very common, sadly. And what's happening is that conflict, very similar to my story. And that's the thing that continues to astonish me. We're not talking about people in their 20s most of the time. Now, it expands to all age groups, but I specifically tend to be attracted to women in their 40s and 50s for whatever reason, probably because that's my age category too. But it astounds me how many people, it's not just women, by the way, but I do specialize in women, how many doubt themselves because we all wonder, are we good enough? And there's a great story. You may have heard it already with Oprah and everybody she interviewed. The majority of people would turn to her no matter what title, what world prominence they had, would turn to her after the interview and say, how'd I do? We all wanna know how we did and if we're measuring up. And so I do think that, especially for women, there is this cultural conditioning where we weren't really encouraged to share our ideas, or more importantly, if we share our ideas, be careful because there might be backlash. So there's often this second guessing and hesitancy that I see in all levels of women, regardless of industry. And that's what I want to shut out of the world. Where, I mean, let's face it, we're all going to have doubt. Let's just be honest. But I never want a woman to be sitting there like I was in the boardroom, paralyzed by doubt to the point where she's not speaking up. And that's why I provide these practical communication strategies so that every woman is with a strategy.
Well, let's get into that. Let's get into this strategy, right?
Yeah.
You call it the confidence cocktail, which I absolutely love.
Thank
So,
you.
this mission of yours, you're at 4.5, you said million to get
Yeah.
to your ton, which is absolutely incredible. It's a bold goal, but you're going to do it, right?
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, that's the whole point here is the attitude is everything, right? So, what's the cost when you work with high achieving women that don't speak up or ask for what they want?
Well, I don't get opportunities. I see this time and time again, and it's actually interesting. I was interviewed last week on Great Mondays podcast, and I love the host, Josh Levine, and he was saying this was such a great example of it's always wonderful when a man is vulnerable and shares openly. Like, I hate to ask Karen. And I was coaching in a room full of 20 board members through another organization about 6 months ago. And one of the guys actually said to me across this U shaped table that we were in, He goes, Karen, I don't even want to ask you for that pen in front of you. I don't even want to ask somebody to pass the mashed potatoes at a dinner because I don't want to bother or inconvenience somebody. So it's definitely universal, but what it's how it's costing us is that we are missing whether it's more business leads, more promotions. I have another example that's a really powerful one. A woman who owns a huge therapy practice, and without getting into all of the details around this particular machine that she has purchased, it was $100,000. That's what matters. And it's a high-end machine that helps with particular type of therapy. But a few months after she bought it, she talked to one of her male colleagues, and he got that same machine for $75,000. And she went, "What?" And she said, "How did that happen?" And he just said, "Well, I asked." And if we look at the statistics, only 7% of women negotiate their first job's salary compared to 57% of men. So we're behind from the beginning. This is a big reason why I want all women to recognize that you can ask. You can also ask for things that aren't on the menu because I see that a lot where people just take what they get and think, like that woman got the price, $100,000. She just figured straightforward, here's $100,000. Never occurred to her to say, hey, is there any wiggle room on that machine?
So awesome.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
love that. I got a quick follow-up because I'm a father of a daughter, right? I have a daughter, she's 12, so I'm a girl dad, and, I can tell you that we have trained really trained my daughter to be this, like, super salesperson, right? And then she always asks me, "Hey, dad, I have a question." Right? Hey, dad,
Like, I
can I
know.
ask you a question? So it's something we do just for her to be comfortable saying that. I don't care if it's, can she get boba this weekend? I don't care if it's she can do a sleepover with her girlfriends, or I don't care if it's a, hey, dad, can you bring my basketball jersey to school because I forgot it? Like it's everything is always prefaced with, hey, dad, I got a question. If you scroll through my chat on my text, it's like all, hey, dad, I got a question. Just getting that ingrained in her to be comfortable asking, it's so important. And we, as a sales organization, we see now more women than ever before getting into sales. Are you seeing that as well? And I see a resurgence of women getting into this industry?
Yes, and I see more confidence in the beginning, and that's what's interesting too, that younger girls, I'm just thinking now even, not talking about necessarily employees, but younger girls in their teens, for example, or elementary school, have this confidence. There's also a really fabulous documentary called Pioneers in Skirts, and it was a mother-daughter team that filmed this, and it was really fascinating and sobering at the same time of how these girls had so much confidence. But then when they were more out in the world, per se, even in school projects and that kind of thing, when people would shoot them down or things like that, they tended to take it more personally. And so I love that more women are getting into sales because to me, sales is all about building relationships. We have this, I mean, again, I'm preaching to the choir here with you and Lexi, but it's really that whole thing. We have that persona of what we think a salesperson is. Oh, they're trying to convince me to buy something I don't need. And yet, what I love is that women are so relational. And so when we look at that connection piece, that's really our superpower. I mean, it is for everybody, but if we can lean into that, that is such a beautiful thing. I also wanted to bring up an example because as I was thinking about this, the difference between a passive and a direct ask. Because there was a period of time where I was training a lot of sales teams on how to make the ask. This was a number of years ago with this specific exercise I would do. So we would get people into pairs and they would come up to the front of the room and they had 1 minute to pitch their idea to the other person, product, service idea. Their only main requirement, and like, what was the versus like, yes, you got a point on this or no, you didn't, was that they had to make a direct ask at the end of their pitch. Well, I recorded all of these on video, but before we played them back, I would ask by show of hands how many of you would say that you made a direct ask. And the majority of people raised their hands. But then when we listened to them back, because of course I knew this was coming because I heard them all, is they would say things like, let's just say if Gabe, I'm talking to you, it would be, so Gabe, if you're interested, just let me know. Versus, are you interested? And so I always tell people if you start a sentence with the word if, it's most likely not going to be a direct ask. And then it leaves people hanging. And we do this in our emails. Hey, Gabe, gosh, it's so great to connect with you. Be great to get something on the calendar sometime. And that's all I do versus, hey, can you meet next week at Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific? Does that work for you? Such a different result.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, totally. And you brought up confidence, and obviously you created the confidence cocktail framework. Could you walk us through high level what that actually is and how it works for people?
Sure. Well, most people come to me because they want to be a more clear, compelling, and credible communicator. They may not put it in that language. Most of the
Seems
time.
a lot of that's a big
That's
alliteration.
a
I love
lot,
it.
yeah. So I call it the 3 C's to command any room. Let's face it, we want to command rooms, we wanna command high stakes conversations, we want to own our authority so that we can open doors that we never dreamed would be possible. And so when I explain it to people, it's really about those 3 C's of confidence. But how we get there is through communication tools. And there are 8 ingredients that I have found over the thousands of people I've coached now over the years that help us get there. So without going through all of them, I mean, I guess I could run through them all. What do you think would be most helpful? I know you said high level, Lexi.
Yeah, I think hearing them all would be great.
Okay. So the first one, although they don't necessarily go in this order, but this makes sense in my brain because it's really about what of these ingredients does a person need to work on most. So identity. Who are you? What experience do you create in the world? You know, a lot of times we don't realize how we're coming across through our facial expressions and our tone of voice. And is that actually representative of the brand that we want to be in the world? A lot of times it doesn't match, but we think, you know, it's that whole intention versus impact. We think we're coming across a certain way, but we're not. So I see this a lot with women, particularly in their voices. Are they coming across with authority and conviction? So, anyway, I digress a little bit more there, but identity is one. Another one is mindset. How's your self doubt? How are you essentially moving toward the right mindset? And then presence is a big one that I work on with people through their body language and their voice. And then the message itself. What are you saying? And is it landing with people? Is it relevant? Are you rambling or are you getting to the point quickly? And then the other ones are negotiation, as well as thinking on your feet, challenging conversations, and leadership from a servant leadership perspective. And at the base of the whole glass, if you imagine a martini glass, although you can imagine any cocktail you want, but something has to hold it up, courage is at the base because we're not going to do anything if we don't have the courage to take a micro step. And that's what I always recommend people do is first of all, what is your biggest pain point? What is the thing you feel like, oh, I'm just not able to do this or that? So let's figure out from a communication standpoint what would be the biggest bang for your buck, shall we say, to start with. So I have people rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 10 and then, you know, and also celebrating the things that we do well first. Like what are you doing well? What do you need to work on?
So amazing list. I love that courage is the one at the bottom, but I will say that holding everything up, that's the base. So when you say you're rating things 1 through 10, where do you see the biggest stereotype of doing it wrong is, or maybe what women are not realizing how they're actually showing up on this list? What's the ones that you typically see? Yeah, we have to work on these the most. Is
Right.
there a glaring,
Well, yeah, there's the and it's also I wanna clarify, it's what people think versus what they actually need.
yeah,
So, somebody might just come to me with, "Somehow I'm not landing the deals that I'm wanting to land," or other people are beating my quota or, you know, or their quotas are beating me. I'm not keeping up. So, I need to figure out what it is. And so, they might come with doubt. So, mindset, although they probably wouldn't even call it mindset, they'd probably say, you know, "I'm second guessing myself," something like that.
imposter syndrome, something like that.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And yet, most people need to work on their presence and specifically within that category, their voices. So what I hear a lot is tentative, the ums and the ahs come in out of nervousness. But what I want to highlight is that it's simple punctuation that tends to go out of the window when we speak versus when we write. When you write an email, you wouldn't think twice about. Of course, you're going to put commas and periods in there where appropriate. But somehow when we speak, we end up saying everything with a question mark at the end, and it becomes a run-on sentence. We never really land, and so we don't come across owning our authority. And were either of you on the Clubhouse app many years ago, the audio only Clubhouse app? So doesn't really matter. It's just that it was a chat room, and I ran a lot of seminars in there, and you could only hear people's voices. But what I want to bring up is that there was one woman who was a very renowned person in her field, and I know her. But to hear her in this audio room where all you get is the voice, I thought, she does not sound like she knows what she's talking about. And that's, to me, a huge blind spot that is preventing people from getting those opportunities. And she was hemming and hawing, hedging in her voice. And it was this softer, kind of tentative language. She wasn't landing anywhere. And just to make this more real for everybody, I'll do a quick example. So if I introduce myself, this is how most people introduce themselves. Hi, I'm Karen Laos, and I'm originally from Minneapolis, but now I live in San Francisco. Versus, hi, I'm Karen Laos. I am originally from Minneapolis, but now I live in San Francisco.
They're so different.
Isn't it crazy? And I want to highlight and underscore that the only thing I'm doing differently in the second one is punctuating.
Yeah.
But it sounds so much more confident and that I'm in control and that I'm taking you somewhere. I mean, I don't know about the two of you, but when I hear somebody on a call and feel like they're hesitant or hedging, I immediately, it loses credibility for me. And I think, oh, am I going to need to take over this call? Suddenly trust erodes even in that quick few seconds that you hear somebody. So
Yeah.
it's so worth it to work on these things, but a lot of people don't think it's that big of a deal.
Totally. And I'd love to know, do you think remote work has made that harder for women or easier because you feel, not just women in general, but you feel like you can have kind of hide behind your screen or go off camera or mute if you feel uncomfortable in a situation?
Well, it's an interesting question because I think that on one hand, it makes it easier as far as more comfortable that, oh, I can hide. I can turn off my camera at a moment's notice. Imagine doing that in person, like putting up hey, I'm putting up a notebook in front of my face. If you don't want to be here. It's one of those things where safety does not equal growth and opportunity.
Right.
When we play it safe, we are not moving into the next level of ourselves and the doors that we want to open. And so it's that whole challenge of, and I mean, let's just face it, regardless of the situation, we always have opportunity to influence. Now, what I will say about the remote work situation now is that we actually have more opportunity if we're willing to activate our courage and to speak up. Because one of my biggest tips is to speak first. And there's research around people that speak more and speak first are perceived as even greater leaders. So this is part of the problem that I see though with people. They think, "Oh, well, I don't want to go first," or "I don't want to." It could even be like they might be shy or more introverted, but it could also be, "Oh, I don't want to take up space. I don't want to bother anybody. I want to let other people go first." And I always say, nonsense. Most people are completely relieved when somebody goes first. Because I see this all the time. I saw it just an hour ago when I was at a virtual conference when they opened up the space. 25 people, not a huge group, but also not terribly small. Hey, who wants to kick it off and introduce themselves? Crickets.
Yep.
And because I know the organizer, I mean, of course, I was ready to go first, but I didn't want in that particular case, because I am one of the speakers, I thought I need to just let the audience do their thing. I'm more there as a witness or, as a participant. But it is fascinating how I see this all the time. And so when you jump on that opportunity, you're the first voice that's heard. And especially when you speak with authority and a smile on your face, you've got that beautiful balance of warmth and assertiveness, which really makes you that likable badass that Allison Forgale talks about, who's the author of the book Likable Badass.
I love this. So my dad died when I was really young. So my mom was a
Mhm.
single mom, and my aunt never was married, never had kids. They moved in together, and my aunt adopted me when I was 2 years old. So both of my parents are women, right? That I look at, but they're really
Yeah.
important. High, they're educators, they're professors, they're in the education. So they do, they're not salespeople, but they say they are because they just sell, to kids as opposed to, selling to adults. But long story short, something my mom always enforced in me when I was young is I had to sit in front of the class. Now, my aunt was the headmaster at my school, and my mom was the teacher at my high school. So they both knew if I was doing it or not because they were at school too. But it was so enforced in me to be in front of the class, sitting in front of the class at least, because it was always engaging, right? Now, Lexi brings up AI. I'm sorry, Lexi brings up remote. I'm going to bring up AI. Is AI hurting us, helping us when it comes to our ability to communicate? Are we relying too much to be behind our devices and the be leveraging technology? Or do you see it as something that could really help people grow into being more confident by using tech?
I think it can help. It all depends on your strategy. And I think part of the problem is people just go, oh, let's try this. They dibble and they dabble, however you want to call it. And I really want, especially women, to think more strategically to go, what am I going to use this for? And I'll admit there are times where I have been lazy and I call it lazy because I want to say, because I think there's nothing wrong with using AI and I use it all the time. But where I get into being lazy is, oh, let me just see what it'll say, and then I'll just kind of post the whole thing rather than doing many edits. As opposed, so now if it's completely aligned with your voice, that's one thing. But I started noticing that my thought leadership, there was a period of time there for a couple weeks where I thought, I'm just relying on AI and I'm not really thinking. I'm just going, oh, that's not, oh, yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's good. And I think that it's important to have that balance. So, what I have started doing now, which I also recommend to anybody, is to start first. This is probably basic, but not everybody is doing this. Is to start with what you would suggest. Start with a draft of something. And now, again, there's so many different ways that we can use AI. Obviously, I'm a content creator as well. So, I will put in, hey, make this better, and then see what it does versus, hey, create this, da 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 da. Because I've also noticed that I have always got to deal with my operating system from the past that is still lingering at times that says, oh, other people know better than me. And that's that whole permission seeking that a lot of us women do. And I've been working on that for years. So it's not like it's this huge issue anymore, but I can see it creeping in when with AI. I'm like, oh, that sounds so good. Oh, as opposed to really going, what do I think? And that's where I would say people can get into the problem of relying on it to the point where it becomes their voice as opposed to you drive the voice, and at the end of the day, AI is just generated content online anyway, so we've gotta be originals. That's really what I wanna say.
Yeah, I really like that take, and I can definitely see where people online will just use AI and not put their spin on it. So, so important. And you've written 3 best-selling books: Trust Your Own Voice, Invisible No More, Unshakable. What's the message of each, and who really should read each one of them?
Trust Your Own Voice is my solo book, so I wanna say that full disclosure. That's the one that is my signature, and that is 50 plus years of all of the information I have and the knowledge around communicating to influence. So that is a guidebook, and the concepts are universal, but of course, my heart is for that woman that is holding herself back and may or may not even know it. So that's the number one thing that I would say for any woman who simply wants to elevate herself. I also want to say that this was also an interesting learning for me because somebody recently told somebody else apparently that, oh, Karen Laos, she works with people who don't have any confidence. And this woman was so great. She wrote this LinkedIn post and she goes, let me be clear. Karen works with high achieving, high performing women who have certain times held themselves back or they second guess at certain situations, not like these wallflowers that are just needing desperate help. So I do think that's important to acknowledge here. The Invisible No More is really a highlight of my it's a number of authors and it's all about getting yourself into the spotlight. And my story in there is about the boardroom moment that I mentioned earlier. And then Unshakable is a unique book because I love the title. And I always believe that everyone can have unshakable confidence with the right help and tools. But that I wrote with my husband because he had a kidney transplant and it's all about hope through community. So that one is more of it, and it's a compilation of stories from a variety of people. So again, my husband and I are one story in that book specifically to help people find hope through challenging situations. And that was, I will say, starting my business the same year that my husband's kidneys failed was not something I would have said, let's go do that. And it has definitely been the most challenging 5 years of my life, but it's also been the most exhilarating and fun too.
Wow. So in addition to those amazing works, you also are a podcaster.
Yeah.
And then you are a TEDx coach, which I think is amazing.
Yes.
And so walk us through this. What have you learned about storytelling and then also influencing and coaching people how to do their own TEDx talks and their own storytelling?
The biggest thing that I see as a problem that most people do is they data dump or they talk about themselves. And we have to start, if we're pitching an idea, for example, if we want to get a story out into the world, drop us into the story, make it emotional, make it stick. But we tend to say, well, I mean, there's so many different formats that this falls into, but I'll speak specifically to TED. So, and I do want to tell you the story of that because I think it's a good one because some people go, wait, you live in San Francisco, but you're a TEDx speaker coach for Minneapolis? Like what how does that work? And so I definitely coach people wherever they live on TEDx speaking engagements, but I specifically volunteer for, everybody's volunteer with TEDx. And so volunteer for Minneapolis. But I want to share, so the first thing that I want to come back to is just the problem is that we don't pitch the idea in a way that's compelling enough. We pitch it with all the information. And I do think that that comes from a place of needing to prove, feeling like you need to prove rather than just saying, one day I was in a boardroom with 7 people staring at me, stomach in my throat. My boss shuts down the meeting. That's so much more compelling than let me tell you this story about a number of years ago. And I was an executive at a company and I had to, it's like I've lost you. And so a few years ago, because I'm originally from Minneapolis, I applied to be a speaker and I got a call to interview. Had a great connection with the woman. And then she said, okay, we had 100, well, she probably didn't tell me this. Now I can say this. We have 100 applicants typically in Minneapolis, and they chose 17 of us. And then she said, my job is to sell you in front of the committee next week because I really believe in your message. And we will choose 6 from those 17. And I thought, like, this was serendipity. This is my moment. And then the next week, I get the dreaded rejection email. Thank you so much. And I'll tell you, I was so sad. But after a day of grieving, I picked myself up and I said, we had such a great connection. Why don't I ask her, going back to the ask, why don't I ask if she wants to have coffee? Because I'm actually going to be in Minneapolis this week. Asked her, she said yes. We had coffee. We had a great connection. I volunteered to volunteer at the event. And she said, Karen, with your background, I think you'd be a really good fit as a speaker coach with us, but I can't make that decision. And then she introduced me to the person. I went through quite a few hoops to get to the role, but then I did. And then the best part is that the group nominated me to be the MC of the event, and that was in 2023. So it's so fascinating how you never know what can happen when you ask. And I've been coaching on the team ever since.
That's such a great story, and putting yourself out there is always so important, and with putting yourself out there brings me to my next question about creating content. So, a lot of people like it, don't like it, don't want to put themselves out there. What's your philosophy on thought leadership and how you stay authentic online?
Be yourself. It's truly it. You mentioned the word authentic already, but that's what I was going to say. I think we have to get past this idea of I have to be perfect. It has to be this way before I such and such. I have a friend that has an amazing business idea. She already has the product created, and yet she wants to do another focus group and another thing. And I said, as I said, can I speak into this right now? And she said, sure. I said, what is another focus group going to do for you? Why don't you just launch it? Do you trust yourself? And I think a lot of times we don't trust that other people are going to like it, or we're too worried about what everybody's thinking. There's a great book called The Courage to Be Disliked. I forget the name or the authors, but it's such an incredible, it's like 5 million sold. We have to get past this. I mean, and you two know this when you're training sales teams and being a voice for sales in the world. We have to get past that. And that's a easier thing to say. I mean, it's easy to say. I get that. And yet if we want the results, and what I will tell you, here's a great example, okay? I'm an extrovert, so it's not hard for me to put myself out there. I've never known the difference of what's authentic versus not. I've never known even how to be fake. Like that isn't even in my vocabulary. But so I never, let's put it this way, I never thought of that as something that strategically I said, okay, I'm going to go out there and be authentic. I just showed up and made videos and and all the things. And I bring this up specifically for this example because a few months ago, I had a company ask me if I would come talk to them about how to build your digital presence. And I thought, wait, what? It never would have occurred to me to put that out in the world and sell myself as somebody who builds digital presence. But they said, we've been watching you and we want you to show us how to do it. And that was the most beautiful compliment I could have ever asked for. Again, I wasn't looking for it. But what I have come to learn now that I have had to create content, or I chose to create content for that engagement. I now have a podcast episode about it. It's now one of my offerings for companies. But what I have learned is that it really is about being authentic and then saying something relevant and not spending a ton of time with a ton of fluff about yourself and all the things. Like make it short to the point and like a lot of people say, be brief, be bright, be done.
I love it. I love it. So, last question. If someone is listening right now and they're stuck or they're holding back or they're just playing small, what's one free tip of advice that you want to give them that they should start to do right away next week that will take them in the right direction?
Well, I would recommend that they start today, and it's something I call the celebration portfolio. We all have data, but a lot of times we don't have it right in front of us. So, what this is a list of two things. One is your accomplishments and writing those down. But the other one is something most people don't talk about very often is your character qualities or your values. So, think about what is it about you personally that other people appreciate. So for example, do you bring positivity to the world? Is that some are you naturally positive? A lot of times we don't see these things ourselves though. So my suggestion as an adjunct to this exercise is to ask 5 people that you know and trust for 5 positive qualities about you. Start getting some of that evidence, and the more you ask people, the more you'll start hearing themes. I'm doing a branding exercise right now as a participant with somebody that I've hired, and he had me do this, and I thought, "You know what? I'm just gonna put this out on LinkedIn." I was blown away by the responses. I mean, seriously, like, it could just make me cry right now. How many people responded when I said, "What do you think makes me unique?" And these are things that are so inherent about us that we don't even realize they're unique about us until somebody else gives us that back. So then you have that list so that when you are feeling that doubt, have it right in front of you, whether it's on your phone or your computer or physically. I mean, I have a whole portfolio of physical letters and cards that people have given me over the years, and it helps build my confidence, especially in those moments where I might be having a bad day.
That's awesome. And you've been incredible. So happy that we have you on the show. Who is the best person that should reach out to you, and where's the best place for them to do that?
So most of the women that I work with are C-suite executives, and a lot of them are in the luxury hotel space. So hotel management groups, hospitality groups, and hotel GMs. So the way that they can reach out to me, but it's not exclusive to that, but it's really the woman that is in a high prominent leadership role, but there's something that is holding her back and she's not exactly sure what it is, or she wants to ask for something big, or she wants to present on a big stage, or has a high stakes conversation to have. So KarenLaos.com is my website, and that is KarenLaos.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Instagram, and my podcast is called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laos.
Awesome. Karen, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We are so excited to have our audience listen to you. You are absolutely awesome. So thank you, everyone, for joining the show this week, and keep doing the hard things. And Lexi and I will see you on the next one.